Okay, so let's continue. All right, so that's that. We said with the if statement, anything that comes down when it's indented, okay? So the parent is indented. It means this is the child, this is the parent. So this is the child, this is the parent, so this is the parent, and this is the child because this one has been indented, okay? So child. All right. So let me add another line. So if I do something like this, program ended, okay? Program ended, code executed. If I do something like this is the parent, okay? Because it hasn't been indented under the if. Please, do we get it? All right, so let's try to run this code whether it's true. So 89, then run. Okay, so this, okay, so let's enter a value. Let's make this statement false, okay? So if you make this statement false, what will happen is the child will not follow, but this parent is not part of the of this parent, so this one should run. So let's try. So let's enter 56. All right, so you can see your fat didn't run, but the last one ran because it's a parent on this one. Okay, so that's for indentation in Python. So we said in Python, spaces are very important, okay? Or indentations are really important. In other programming languages like JavaScript, let me share a screen with you for you to see something. In JavaScript, indentation is not important. You see, if you want to make something the parent, what you need to do is you just bring if statement, then bracket open, bracket close. Okay, so that's for other languages. But in Python, it's different. But in other languages, this is how we do it: bracket open, bracket close, even in PHP, C#, Java, like all those languages, bracket open, bracket close. But in Python, it's just indentation. All right, so let's go to our next thing. The next thing that we talk about is else if, okay? Else if. But in Python, we call it elif. So elif, okay? So elif, that's else if in Python. So let's use it. So else if, okay? Else if the mass, okay? The mass is less than 30, then we print this. Let's print something. We do print get some rice to eat, okay? All right, so this is the meaning. Let's explain. We said with the if statement, if this is true, this will run. So if this one runs, then to go to the next parent, we said this is a parent. This one has been dented under this parent. So this is the child for parent 2. So let's name it this parent 1, child for parent 1, this child for parent 2. Okay. So here, the value that you enter, if it's less than 30, to tell you get some rice to eat. If it's greater, if it's false, it means this won't run. So let's run it and see. Right, so let's run, let's enter something like 16, okay, and let's see. All right, so we entered 16 and it says, so let's start with the code. It starts from the top to the down, discussed in our last class. So this is what came for me to enter. The next thing is came to this parent and we entered 16. 16 is greater than, it's less than 70, but we've written is greater than here. So it means this statement is false. So this won't run, okay? Let's go to the next parent. We entered 16. 16 is less than 30 and it's true. Since it's true, the child will run. So that's why we have get some rice to eat here. Okay, so let me open a typical code for you to see. With this, we have a lot of if statements, if statements everywhere. Okay, even if you want to check whether the user has made error, use if statement. So if else statement is very correct. It's very useful in programming. All right, let's tackle the last thing in if statement or decision making. The last thing that we talked about is else. Okay, so the else, what it means is if none of these, okay, is true, run the else. Okay, so else, then let's say print I don't even know the value I would, okay, or I typed. All right, so with this one, what we are trying to say is, so the colon, don't forget the colon, the conditions, any condition that you write, colon, condition, colon, condition, colon. All right, so let's enter something like, okay, so let's do if it's less than, let's say, it's greater than, is equal to. All right, so have we talked about the comparison? So if it's equal to, we use double quote. Okay, we use a single equal to assign values. We use this to compare two values, whether it's the same. Okay, so let's test this one and see. So let's run it. All right, so it's asking me to enter my mass. So let's enter 60. So when we enter 60, it's telling us we are fat because we entered, we use this operator. We are trying to compare whether it's the exact. Okay, so that's what we use for the passwords. We use for password, we use for email, we use for anything. So let's go through this JavaScript and see whether we have it in the live system. Let's use our account. Okay. So you see we have it here. Okay. We have it a lot. This, if the password matches that, okay. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so let's check whether the else statement will run. So let's run the code again. Let's enter something like 89. All right, so we entered 89. Let's see how the code ran. In the first if statement, we entered 89. So 89 is not equal to 60. So this won't run. Okay. Then the next one, the elif. Okay, so the else if we entered 89. 89 is not less than 30. So this statement is false. So this won't run. Okay. The else will run because the else, it means none of the conditions above run. Okay, so the else should run. If one of them run, it means the else would not run. So that's the conditional statement that we use in Python and how to write it. Do you have any question?
Okay, Reggie.
Yes. Okay, we are continuing. The next thing that we look at is what we call the nested loop or the nested if statement. The nested if statement is if you have an if statement or if you have a parent, okay, you can also have a parent inside a parent and that parent will have children. Okay, this is what I mean. These things we understand, okay? So this is what I mean. Let's also ask the user to enter his age, okay, age. So input, so type, what is your age or how old are you? Okay. So let's see. So inside the first one, what we can do is we can just bring if, okay, age is greater than let's say 22, then you show the user You are old. Okay. Then write else. Okay. Else everything is okay. Okay, so let me explain this thing that I've written. All right, so you can see we have this parent, okay, and this parent has a child, okay, but this child has a child, so it's no more a child. So this is a grandparent, this is a parent, this is a child, okay. So that's what we call nested loop. So nested if statement. So in an if statement, you can have another if statement under it. So let's try to run and see what will happen. Okay, so we are running. So this code won't run. Please, can someone explain? All right, so we have to put this one in an integer. Okay, we have to cast it into an integer. So now let's run the code. Okay, so what's your mass? Let me enter 60. What's your age? Let me enter 23. All right, so it's telling me I'm old. Okay, so let's see. So the code runs from the top. So the mass, it asks us to enter our mass. We entered the age too, we also entered this one because we entered 60. This main parent will run. Okay, so this one run, and the children too should run. So this is a child. So this one run, you are fat. So that's how come you have your fat here. The next one, he said, if the age is greater than 22. We entered 23 for age, okay? So it means it's greater. So it means this one will run. All right. The else statement will not run because you said that for else statement, it only runs when the statement above, none of them is true. But here's the case, we had this one to be true and this one run. So the else statement will not run. So if we had, let's say, enter something like 21, the else will run because the if statement for the else was false. Please, do you understand? Can we go on?
Yeah, Rich, you can go.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So let's look at another thing today. So let me save this. I've saved it. So let me create another file for the next session. So new Python file. Then we enter the name of this one. So with this one, we talk about loops. Save. All right. So with the loops, it's very, very important. We loop, it's also very important. Okay. So let's see the syntax for the loop and why we use loop. For instance, let me open a website. Let's go to Twitter, twitter.com. Okay. And also let's go to Google Drive. Let's open Google Drive. I'm just trying to refresh my Google Drive. Okay, Twitter is open. All right, so with Twitter, for instance, if you can see, you will see that these are tweets, okay? And each tweet, it has the same design. Please, can we see? Let me go back. Okay, so with this tweet, for instance, this tweet, it has views, we have comments, we have, so it's the same for all the tweets. Please, can we see? Okay, it has this.
Yes, we can.
Yes, so if you take WhatsApp, for instance, if you open WhatsApp, you can see the design is the same for all the values that you have, or all your contacts. The design is just the same. It has been repeated. And they use loops, okay, to do that. So let's talk about loops. So the first loop that I want us to talk about is what we call the for loop. So let's talk about for loop first. Okay, should we start? Okay, let's start with for loop. Okay, so we start with for loop before we go to for loops, because with for loops we do a lot with it. All right, so with for loop, this is the syntax. So write for the condition, okay? For condition, print you are not okay, okay? All right, so this is the condition. So while condition, then you bring what we call this colon, okay? So what's the condition? The condition is, for instance, I've asked the user to enter the mass, okay? So, or the answer for the question, okay? So I'll say answer, okay? So I'll ask the user to enter the answer. So I'll do something like input. What is your pet's name? Okay. If ask the user this question, what we want the user to do, or let's use a number. You go to the string data. What is the age? How old is your pet? Let's ask the user something. How old is your pet? Okay. All right. So if the answer that comes, okay, is equal to, let's say 67, we should print this one. The while loop means till this condition is false, run this one no matter what, or continue running it till this condition is false. Okay, so with this code, what will actually happen is it will run forever, and it can cause your machine to crash, or can cause what you call memory leaks, because if I ask the user to enter the pet's name, okay, and the user entered, let's say the user entered 64 or 68, okay, what the user entered, this one will not run because the condition is false. So the program will terminate successfully. But if the person is able to get 67, able to write 67, it means this one will run forever because of this condition that we used. Okay, so inside a while loop statement, so this condition is very important. So inside a while loop statement, we always need a termination value, okay? So something should always terminate the while loop. This is the meaning, or this is what I mean. Okay, so I've asked the person to enter his pet's name. So the answer that came, then we said, okay, if it's less than or equal to 67, okay, what we need to do is to print this one. Then we bring a termination value. So we say the answer, okay, should be equal to, let's say, answer plus 1, or answer minus 1. Let me explain this statement. So this is what will happen. Let me delete this comment. It means, let's say if the user entered 68, okay, 68 comes here, 68 is not less than this one, so this code will not run. So let's say if the user enters 66, okay, 66 is less than or equal to 67, so this will run. So if this runs, then when it gets here, the user entered 66. So 66 minus 1 is what? 65. Okay, then the code will start again. You see, with the while loop, if the children finishes, it comes back to the top again and run. So to do like this. So it's just inside to be in the loop. That's why we call it loop. To be running till the statement is false. Okay. So if the user enters, so let's do something like plus. Okay. So if the user enters, let's say 65. So 65 is less than 67. So this one will run. This one will print. 65 plus 1 and what? 66. So 66 will be the answer. Then to come back again, 66 is less than 67. So this will print multiple times. To come here, 66 plus 1 is what? 67. To come to the top here, 67 is less than or equal to is true. So this statement is true. So this one will print again. So this one will print 3 times. Okay. Then 67 plus 1 is 68. So to come to the top, 68 is greater than 67. This statement is false. So it means the program will stop running. Okay. All right. So let's run and see whether what I'm saying is correct. So let's run it. Let's enter 66. So, okay, let me stop this one. Let me run it again. Run, it's a new file. We go to what's the name? Loops. I've not saved it. Okay. So I've saved it. Run loops. Okay. All right. First, how old is your pet? 66. All right. So we had the error because of the type error. So let's convert this one to int. So one thing you can do is you can just do int. Then you just do something like this. Okay. So that this answer will always be int. So let's run. How old is your pet? So 66. All right. So this one was able to run 2 times. The condition here was able to run 2 times because 66 is less than or equal to 67. This will print, but when you got here, it will add +1. So when +1, the answer is 67. You come here, this statement is true, it will print again. To get here to be 68 because 67 plus 1 is 68. To come here is false, so to exit. Okay, so that's why we have something like this. So let me show you a typical example. So with this, with Twitter, let's go to Twitter. For Twitter, if they use while loop, because the loops we have types. We have while loop, we have for loops. Okay. I would advise you not to use while loop because it can cause memory leakage if you don't really know what you are doing. Okay. But with the for loop, it really makes sense. So for instance, with this one, what Twitter will do is they will go to their database, they will count the number of tweets, okay, for let's say Richard. So if they count the number of tweets is let's say 67, then they will say, okay, print whatever in the database till you get to the 67 value. So it's just like this, okay? So let's say with this one, if we are to pick this one from the database, okay? So if we have to pick, so let's say this one was picked from the database, you get there. The content will be different, okay? At each loop. Please, do we get it? So the first one will be, let's say, Ghana. The second one will be Togo, because in the database we have dynamic values. But with this one, we have what we call static value. Let's make it dynamic and see. We can concat it with the answer, okay, and see the value, okay, whether it's true, what we are saying is true. So let's run and see. So let's enter 66. All right, so we are not okay. So it means the answer that came, that made this one evaluate was 66. The second one was 67. And when you go to 68, this one was false. So the program exited. Okay, so this is what we use. So let's say we have to pick this one from the database to be dynamic. So we use loops everywhere. So this one is loops. You go to your message, it's loops. Anywhere you go, it's loops. This one, you see the same design. It's loops. This one is loops. So loops everywhere. Please, am I bombarding you too much? If I am, let's pause for today. Then next time we talk about the for loops and a whole lot. Please, what's your view? Should I continue or I should pause for tonight? In a graphical form or a flow, okay, on how the if statement and the for or the while loop works. Okay, so this. So this is the whiteboard. Okay, so let's say we let the user enter a value. Okay, so the user enter the value here. Enter a value. Okay, if the answer is yes, okay, we should run the children, okay, or the indent. If it's false, we should exit the code, okay. So that was what we were trying to do. So if statement, if it's true, we do something, else we exit or we do another thing. And with the for or with the while loop, what happens is you enter a value, here, okay. So you ask the user to enter a value. If the condition is true, okay, you run the code again. Condition is true, you run the code again. But we said we call something terminating value or something that should terminate the code, because with this diagram I've done, you can see it will run forever. So in course of the code, you need to bring a value or something that can terminate the code if a condition that will make the condition false. So that's why we brought something like +1 or something, so that let's say if this one is, let's say I is equal to, let's say is equal to, let's say 3.
Point.
Or 1 is equal to 3. So if it gets here, we said we should add 1. So it will be 2. So it will run again. So if it gets here, sorry, let's use something like less than or equal to 3. Okay, let's use that less than or equal to 3 or less than 3. Okay, so with this one, 1. So when 1 gets here, we add 1 to it. So to be 2, then to go back. So 2 is less than 3. So to go back. Then here you add 1 to it, okay, because that's the use of this circle. Then to go back. So when it gets here, 3 is not less than 3. 3 is equal to 3, but not less than 3. So this code will not run again. This whole thing will exit. So that's the whole idea of the while loop.
Is sleeping.
So that's the whole idea of the while loop. Okay. All right. So the if statement. So today we talked about the if statement, the else if. We'll talk about the else statement. Okay. And we said with the if statement, if the condition inside the if statement is true, you run the children or the indent under the if. Else, if this statement is true, you run the conditions under it. If none of this, that's the if or else if none was true, we run this. But if one was true, this one would not run. Okay, so that's all we've talked about today. Please go back. You can watch the video again. Go through for loop. Go through while loop. Go through if statement. So today we only talked about while, else if, else statements. Just go through over these 4 statements we've talked about. Don't go beyond that. You get confused. And in our next class too, we would have assignment as we had today. Okay, to help us. All right, so have a nice day. If you have any question, don't hesitate to message me on WhatsApp or any of these. I'll be glad to assist. Please, do you have any question?